The elevator doors glided open with a quiet chime. Camilla stepped onto the 32nd floor of the Park Ridge Grand with practiced precision. The hallway was velvet quiet, sunlight bouncing off polished marble. In one hand, she gripped her maid's cart. In the other, her clipboard bearing one final task. Her shift had already stretched long. Too many guests, too many messes. She expected towels to fold, maybe a forgotten wineglass on the nightstand. Nothing unusual. But fate had a way of dressing bombs in ordinary clothes. Camilla swiped her badge, pushed open the suite door, and stopped cold. There, backlit by the sprawling skyline, stood a man in a dark tailored suit, the kind of suit that said power doesn't wait for permission. He held a crystal glass near his lips, staring out the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. And then he turned, his eyes locked on hers. Time, reality, everything froze. He said her name, like a breath that had waited 3 years to exhale. Camilla? Her fingers slipped, towels spilling to the floor. The drink in his hand lowered slowly. Is this? Are you real? Camilla's spine straightened. Her pulse pounded like a warning. But her voice stayed steady. I work here. Darren blinked, as if trying to match this version of her with the one that once laughed in his passenger seat, sang to old records, whispered late-night secrets against his chest. I didn't know you were. You didn't care to find out. Silence stretched between them. Thick, loaded, breaking at the edges. Camilla took a step back, hand on the doorknob. He opened his mouth. But she cut him off. By the way, she said, you left more than me behind. And then she walked out. The wind whipped her cheeks as she stood on the fire escape that night, mug in hand, city lights flickering below like forgotten dreams. Behind her, Chantel slept soundly, clutching her faded bear. Camilla pressed the ceramic rim to her lips but didn't sip. It wasn't that seeing him again shook her. It was the realization that she still remembered how he smelled. Lavender, a hint of smoke, something expensive. 3 years. That's how long it had been since she last saw Darren Wexler, the man who once promised he'd figure things out. The man who vanished like the wind once she told him the truth. I'm pregnant. He never responded to that message. No calls, no knocks, no explanation. She remembered thinking maybe his phone had broken. Maybe he was out of town. Maybe, but no. The truth was simple. He just didn't want to deal with it. She wiped the edge of the cup, stared into the dark. Chantel didn't need him. Camilla had built their world from grit and grace. Every diaper, every bedtime story, every scraped knee, she handled it all. Nora helped when she could. But Camilla? She was the sun, moon, and shield in that child's world. She never said Darren's name out loud, never showed Chantel his photo. She figured it was safer that way, cleaner. But now he was back, in the very hotel where she changed sheets and scrubbed bathtubs, and his eyes still saw her. The next morning, Camilla was folding fresh towels when Lonnie, her floor supervisor, tapped her shoulder. The guest in the presidential suite asked for you, he said, glancing down at his clipboard. Camilla didn't move. I told him you were working another section, Lonnie added, but he insisted. Said it was important. She swallowed hard. Tell him I'm not available. Lonnie's brow rose. You sure? He didn't seem like the kind of man who hears no often. That's the problem, Camilla said. She turned on her heel and walked away, leaving the towels half folded. But as she rounded the corner, her breath hitched. Darren was standing at the end of the hallway. No suit today, just slacks, a shirt with rolled sleeves, and that same look in his eyes, as if he saw something no one else could. Camilla, he said, softly. Please. She didn't stop walking. You knew where to find me 3 years ago, she said as she passed. I didn't know, he replied, not chasing, just standing still. I swear. She paused. You didn't want to know. Then she left him in silence. Later that evening, Nora walked into Camilla's apartment holding 2 containers of takeout and a suspicious brow. You look like someone just dug up the past and threw it in your living room. Camilla sighed and tossed her keys on the table. He's staying at the hotel. Nora nearly dropped the noodles. Who? Camilla didn't answer. She didn't have to. Nora blinked. Girl. Camilla sat on the couch, burying her face in her hands. He saw me, she mumbled. He asked for me. Twice. Nora handed her a fork and sat beside her. Did he say anything about Chantel? Camilla shook her head. Not yet. Are you going to tell him? I already did. That day. In the voicemail. And? He acted like he never got it. Nora raised an eyebrow. Do you believe him? Camilla didn't respond. 2 days passed. Then came the knock. It was timid, awkward, unmistakably hopeful. Nora peeked through the blinds. You're not going to believe who's outside with a bouquet and a toy box. Camilla stood in the kitchen, heart in her throat. You going to let him in? Nora asked. Camilla didn't answer right away. She stepped to the door, opened it slowly. Darren stood there, not polished, not rehearsed, just human. I brought her something, he said, lifting the toy. And these are for you. He offered her the bouquet. Flowers won't fix anything, Camilla said flatly. I know, he replied. She narrowed her eyes. You think you can waltz in after 3 years and check her off like some box? Darren's shoulders fell. I don't want to check anything. I want to meet her. Once. Just once. After that, you never have to see me again. Camilla hesitated. Everything inside her screamed protect. But another voice whispered, let him see what he missed. All right, she said. But my rules. No expectations, no promises. Just one moment. He nodded, grateful. Of course. Chantel sat on the floor, crayons scattered around her. The TV played quietly in the background. Camilla stepped aside. Chantel, there's someone I want you to meet. The little girl turned, eyes curious. She looked at Darren, then at her mother. Hi, Darren said, crouching to her level. I'm a friend of your mommy's. Chantel tilted her head. Do you like teddy bears? He asked, offering a plush rabbit. Her fingers wrapped around it instantly. Thank you, she whispered. Camilla stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching carefully. Chantel looked up at Darren again. You have eyes like mine. Darren blinked. Camilla turned away before the emotion reached her face. That night, after he left, Camilla lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Nora leaned on the doorway, arms crossed. You okay? I don't know, Camilla whispered. You want him to come back? Camilla didn't respond, but in the dark, her fingers curled around Chantel's tiny hand. And something inside her shifted. Have you ever run into someone from your past and felt your whole body freeze? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. Before Chantel, before the silence, before the heartbreak that bloomed like a bruise she couldn't explain, there had been laughter. Back then, Camilla wasn't changing sheets in luxury suites. She was setting them, dressed in a sleek black uniform, working weddings and corporate dinners as a banquet attendant. That's where she met him. Not as Darren Wexler, tech elite, just Darren. A man with hands too calloused to be soft, but a smile that made her forget the aching in her feet. The night they met, she had been resetting glassware at table 9 when one of the guests spilled champagne across the linen. Camilla moved fast, blotting and replacing with quiet confidence. That's when she noticed him watching, not staring, just noticing. Later, as the string quartet packed up and most of the guests had trickled away, she stepped outside for air. He followed. You handled that mess like a queen, he said, voice low, a teasing lilt on his tongue. I've cleaned worse, she replied, arching an eyebrow. You always this calm under pressure? She shrugged. Depends who's watching. That night, he asked for her number. She gave it. And for 2 months, it was like something out of a storybook. They didn't need candlelit dinners or rooftop wine. He picked her up after late shifts. They grabbed greasy fries and talked until her eyelids drooped in the passenger seat. She never asked where he lived. He never asked what she earned. And when he kissed her, it wasn't fast or possessive. It was quiet. Sure, like he already knew. until the day she stood in her tiny kitchen staring at a plastic stick with 2 pink lines, and a heart pounding so loudly she was sure the neighbors heard. She called him. No answer. Texted. Silence. She left a voicemail. Hey, I know this isn't how you expected your day to go, but I'm pregnant. I don't need anything from you. I just thought you had the right to know. That was it. No reply. Days passed. Then weeks. And reality set in. Hard. Camila's landlord was lenient at first, but maternity leave didn't pay enough to cover late rent and baby clothes. Nora moved in during the last trimester, helping with groceries and the hospital ride when contractions hit at 3:17 a.m. on a rainy Thursday. Chantel was born with a quiet cry and Darren's eyes. Camila remembered staring at her daughter's face and feeling 2 things at once, grief and grace. I'll protect you, she whispered into her newborn's cheek, even if it means I protect you from him. Back in the present, Camila tucked Chantel into bed, smoothing the blanket over her chest. She closed the door softly behind her, only to find Nora waiting on the other side with a steaming mug of ginger tea. You sure you want to keep letting him visit? Camila sighed. I don't know what I'm doing. You're protecting her. And yourself. She deserves a father. Even if he's late. Nora leaned against the counter. What do you want from him? Camila looked down. Closure, maybe. An apology that actually means something. Proof that I didn't imagine what we had. You didn't, Nora said. But you also didn't need him to survive. Camila smiled faintly. Surviving isn't the same as healing. The next morning, she stepped onto the hotel floor and was halfway to the laundry chute when her phone buzzed. Darren, can I take Chantel to the park this weekend? Just us 3. Please. Camila stared at the message. She hadn't imagined us 3 coming from him. Not ever. She typed, deleted, typed again. Finally she replied, We'll meet you there. Don't be late. Saturday came with warm skies and the smell of roasted peanuts from a vendor nearby. Chantel ran ahead, brown curls bouncing as she shrieked with laughter on the swings. Darren jogged behind her, nervous but eager, hands awkwardly hovering like he feared doing the wrong thing. Camila watched from a bench, arms crossed, heart cautious. He pushed Chantel gently. Hold on tight. I can fly, she screamed. Darren smiled, real, wide, joyful. Camila looked away before it could reach her. When the swings tired her out, Chantel clambered onto the bench and cuddled into her mom's lap. Darren took a seat beside them. She's incredible, he murmured. She's everything. He nodded slowly. You really did this alone. I had to. His voice softened. I want to do better. Camila looked at him carefully. Do you even know what that means? Probably not, he admitted. But I'd like to learn. That evening, Camila lay on the couch, phone balanced on her stomach. Darren had sent a picture, Chantel in mid-laugh on the swing. Her little fists clenched in the air, her eyes wild and free. For a moment, Camila let herself feel something she hadn't in a long time. Hope. Sunday morning, Darren showed up unannounced. Camila opened the door, hair tied up, sweatshirt stained with oatmeal. He held out a bag. Breakfast. Waffles. With strawberries. Thought I'd try my luck. She tilted her head. You cooked? He grinned. I ordered. But I watched them make it. She cracked a smile despite herself. He stepped inside. Chantel peeked from behind the couch, face lighting up. Bunny man. Camila raised a brow. Bunny man? Darren shrugged. The plush rabbit worked some magic. They ate in quiet harmony, laughed when Chantel demanded he learn a cartoon theme song. Cried, just a little, when she fell asleep on his chest without hesitation. Camila watched the rise and fall of her daughter's breath. Watched the man who once ran choose to stay. And slowly, the wound inside her began to close, not with noise, but with quiet presence. The knock came just after sunset. Camila was halfway through folding a pile of laundry when Nora peeked through the living room blinds and let out a low whistle. Well, look who's back. With another toy box and a face like a confession, Camila didn't need to look. She felt it, like a shift in the atmosphere. Darren had a way of lingering before he even spoke. "What does he want now?" she asked, already knowing. Closure? Nora guessed. Or maybe a miracle. Camilla stood still, sock in hand. The knock came again. She sighed, wiped her hands on her apron, and walked to the door. Her pulse pounded harder with every step. When she opened it, he was standing there with a soft expression and a hopeful grip on a box of Legos. "These are for her," he said quietly. "Not to bribe or impress. Just something I thought she might like." Camilla eyed the toys, then his face. "She already has more than enough." "I figured," he said. "Still, I wanted to come by. Can I talk to you?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. 5 minutes, no more. The living room felt too quiet. Chantel was still napping in the next room, and the scent of warm stew filled the air. Darren stepped in cautiously, as though aware he was crossing into sacred ground. "You've been doing everything," he said, eyes glancing at the scattered blocks, the half-folded laundry, the drawings taped to the wall. "I didn't realize how much until I saw it." Camilla crossed her arms. "You didn't want to realize." He nodded. "You're right." Silence settled again. "I'm not expecting you to forgive me," he continued, "but I need to make something clear. When I disappeared, it wasn't because I didn't care." Camilla raised an eyebrow. "Really? Because from where I stood, pregnant, scared and alone, it sure felt like that." "I was scared too," he admitted, "but not of being a father. I was afraid of losing everything I'd worked for, my father, my business, my future. He threatened to cut me off if I didn't handle the situation." "Handle me, you mean?" "I told myself I'd come back, that I just needed time to figure it out." Camilla's voice turned sharp. "And while you were figuring it out, I was figuring out how to feed a newborn." "I'm sorry," he said, voice breaking. Camilla stared at him. "Sorry doesn't pay back lost time." "No, but maybe I can pay it forward, if you'll let me." Chantel padded into the room, rubbing her eyes. She blinked when she saw Darren. "You came back," she said. "I did." She walked up and took the box of Legos from his hand. "Do you want to play with me?" He crouched beside her. "I'd love to." Camilla watched from the doorway as they sat on the rug, tiny pieces spilling like confetti. For the first time, she didn't feel like a mother guarding her daughter from a stranger. She felt like a woman watching someone try. That night, after Chantel fell asleep, Darren stood at the door, ready to leave. "I know this doesn't fix everything," he said. "No," Camilla agreed, "but it's a start." He smiled, nodded, and walked into the night. Over the next week, he returned. Not every day, but often enough. He learned how Chantel liked her cereal warm, not cold. He listened as Camilla vented about work, about rude guests, stubborn stains, and aching feet. He didn't offer solutions, just presence. One evening, Camilla found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in a long while. Chantel had convinced Darren to wear a paper crown she made, declaring him King Bunny Man. He wore it without complaint, sipping invisible tea from a plastic cup. Camilla covered her mouth, chuckling. "You've really lost your edge." He smiled at her. "Maybe I needed to." Their eyes held for a second too long. Camilla turned away, heart thudding. She wasn't ready. Not yet. But for the first time, she didn't dread the idea of maybe, one day, letting him back in. The next morning, Camilla found a note on her doorstep. It wasn't poetic, just honest. "I can't change the past, but I can be here now. If you'll let me, Darren." She folded it gently and slid it into the drawer by her bed. At the hotel, Lonnie pulled her aside. "That same guest. He left a tip for you. Said to use it for your daughter's art supplies." Camilla frowned. "He's not a guest anymore." "Still," Lonnie said, "some men walk away. This one seems to be trying." Camilla returned to work with mixed thoughts tumbling in her chest. Could a man really return from that kind of absence? Could trust be rebuilt from brokenness? That evening, Nora sat across from her at their tiny kitchen table. "You're smiling," she said. Camilla blinked. "Am I?" "Mm-hmm." Camilla sipped her tea, thoughtful. I don't trust him, but I don't hate him either. That's how it starts. Camilla leaned back. How what starts? Forgiveness. The park was buzzing with energy. Children laughed as swings sliced through the breeze, and parents chatted from shaded benches. Camilla sat on the edge of a weathered wooden bench, hands folded tightly in her lap. Chantel danced a few feet away, spinning in circles with her new pink bow clipped firmly in her curls. Darren stood beside Camilla, tall and still, as if afraid that any wrong movement would shatter the fragile trust beginning to form. "She likes this place?" he asked. Camilla didn't look at him. "It's free." A pause. "She calls me Bunny Man." He smiled. Camilla arched an eyebrow. "That's because you gave her a bunny. She hasn't asked who I am." "Not really. She's observant, but she waits until she's ready to ask." Darren knelt beside Chantel as she played with a stick in the dirt. "Want help drawing something?" he asked. She nodded. "Can you draw a princess castle?" He tried. It looked more like a shoe. She giggled. "You draw worse than Mommy." Camilla snorted. "She's not lying." Darren turned. "I don't mind being the funny guy, as long as I'm allowed to be in her life." Camilla hesitated. "You're still a guest, but you're not slamming the door anymore." Later that evening, the three of them sat on the floor of Camilla's small living room. A puzzle stretched between them, half finished. Chantel's brow furrowed as she turned a piece sideways, then clicked it into place. "I did it," she exclaimed, throwing her arms up. Darren clapped. "Genius." Chantel leaned into Camilla's side. "Mummy, can he come back tomorrow?" Camilla froze. Darren held his breath. "We'll see, baby," she replied. When bedtime came, Chantel insisted Darren read her story. Camilla lingered in the hallway, arms crossed but listening. And the brave lion told the moon, "I won't be afraid anymore." And the moon said, "Then I'll always light your way." His voice was gentle, steady. Chantel snuggled closer. "Good night, Bunny Man." Darren whispered, "Good night, sweetheart." Camilla walked away, pretending the tightness in her chest was just tiredness. The following day, Camilla entered the staff break room at the hotel to find Lonnie flipping through his clipboard. "Big day for you," he said without looking up. She furrowed her brow. "What now?" "That man, Bunny Man?" He asked if he could volunteer to repaint the kids' community center wall. "Said your daughter draws there sometimes." Camilla blinked. What?" Lonnie shrugged. Not the usual guest behavior. That afternoon, Camilla passed by the rec center and spotted Darren in old sneakers and a paint-stained tee, roller in hand, humming as he worked. She didn't say a word, just stood watching for a while, feeling her defenses slip another inch. Back at home, Chantel was drawing in the corner of the kitchen. Camilla knelt beside her. "What's that?" She pointed proudly. "That's me and you and Bunny Man." Camilla stared at the picture, 3 stick figures holding hands. A rainbow arched above their heads. One of the figures had bright blue eyes and scribbled hair that matched Darren's. "Mummy," Chantel asked, "why don't I have a daddy like other kids?" Camilla's breath caught. "You do, baby," she whispered, brushing a curl from her daughter's cheek. "He's just learning how to be one." That night, Camilla found Darren sitting on the couch, waiting to say goodbye after story time. The lights were low. The TV buzzed quietly in the background. "You're trying," Camilla said softly. "I am. You don't get a trophy for showing up." "I don't want one," he said. "I just want to stay." Camilla studied him for a long moment. "Don't break her," she finally said. "I won't," Darren promised. "Not again." The sun rose slowly through the smog-heavy clouds, casting an orange tint over the city's concrete sprawl. In Camilla's modest kitchen, the smell of cinnamon oatmeal mingled with fresh coffee. The TV hummed low in the background, playing morning cartoons Chantel had already grown bored of. Camilla stirred the pot absently, lost in thought. A week had passed since Darren first read their daughter a bedtime story, and every day since, he had returned, not with gifts or empty promises, but with grocery bags, laundry detergent, and an unspoken determination. The kind of man who showed up at 6:30 a.m. to walk a cranky 3-year-old to daycare. The kind who washed dishes without being asked. The kind who finally looked like he wanted to stay. That afternoon, Camilla came home from her hotel shift to find the apartment filled with soft laughter and the scent of freshly baked cookies. Darren and Chantel were seated at the table, wearing matching aprons. Flour dusted Darren's shirt collar like snow. "We made your favorite." Chantel beamed, holding out a lumpy oatmeal cookie the size of her face. Camilla took it, blinking at Darren. "You bake now." "I watched 5 YouTube videos and only burned 1 tray," he said with a proud shrug. Chantel grinned. "He let me crack the eggs." Camilla smirked. "So this is why I couldn't find the whisk." Darren laughed, brushing flour from his cheek. "We cleaned everything. Even the sticky stuff under the microwave." She looked at him. "Even I don't clean that." He smiled. "Maybe I wanted to impress the boss." After dinner, as Chantel slept soundly in her room, Camilla and Darren sat on the worn couch with mugs of tea between them. Darren spoke first. "I started therapy." Camilla looked up. "I thought maybe, if I want to be a father, I should deal with the parts of me that weren't ready." "That's good," she said quietly. "You've got a lot to unpack." "I know," he said. "I told my father about Chantel. He didn't take it well." Camilla raised an eyebrow. Darren sipped his tea. "He offered me a check to walk away quietly." Again. Her jaw clenched. "You didn't take it." "I didn't even touch it," he said. "I told him if he couldn't respect my daughter, we had nothing to talk about." Camilla leaned back. "And what did he say?" "He hung up." Silence lingered between them. Then Camilla whispered, "You really walked away from everything?" "No," Darren said. "I walked toward something. For the first time in my life." 2 days later, Camilla opened her apartment door and blinked in confusion. There stood Darren, again, with 3 large bags. "What is that?" "New towels, some groceries, and I fixed your microwave." She frowned. It wasn't broken. He stepped inside, smiling. But the timer stuck. Camilla shook her head, trying not to smile. "You're annoying." "I'm useful," he corrected, setting the bags down. "Also, I brought you something." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a notebook. Camilla took it hesitantly. Inside were pages of drawings, crayon sketches of Chantel, stick figure bedtime scenes, a crooked version of the family photo Chantel had drawn weeks ago. But this one had labels. Mummy, me, Daddy. Camilla stared at it. "I've been drawing with her," Darren said, quiet. "She calls this her wish book." Camilla blinked, her chest tightening. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't either," he said. "But now that I do, I'll never unsee it." On Saturday they went to the library together, Camilla's idea. It was calm, free, and didn't involve any of the fancy distractions Darren used to default to. Chantel skipped between shelves like it was Disneyland. While she hunted for storybooks, Camilla and Darren sat on a low reading bench. He turned to her. "You trust me more now." She nodded, slowly, still not fully. "But I see the work." "That's all I want," he said. Camilla hesitated. "What happens when your world calls you back, when the boardroom needs you?" "I stepped back," he replied, "sold half my shares, hired a managing director." Her eyes widened. "You... what?" "I want to live near her, near you." He exhaled. "I was building an empire and ignoring the one thing that could outlast it, family." Camilla stared at him for a long moment, then quietly, "You sound like someone I haven't met yet." "Maybe I am." That evening, back at home, Camilla found a surprise envelope slipped under her front door. At first, she panicked. Then she saw the handwriting on the back, no pressure, just facts. D. She opened it cautiously. Inside were legal documents, a notarized trust fund document in Chantel's name, a revised will listing Camilla as guardian, authorization for emergency medical access, a letter of apology, Not romantic, not dramatic, just honest. She reread it 3 times. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes, but didn't fall. It wasn't about money. It was about accountability. Later, she placed the letter in her drawer, right next to the one she wrote to herself 3 years ago when she first brought Chantel home from the hospital. You are enough. You are her whole world. Until someone else proves they deserve a piece of it, guard it with fire. Maybe Darren had earned a spark, but not the flame. Not yet. The next morning, he showed up again. No flowers, no gifts, just him. Want help walking her to daycare? He asked. Camilla blinked. You know the way. I memorized the route. She studied him, then handed him Chantel's backpack. All right, bunny man, let's see if you can survive the, what's that, walk. He grinned. They walked together down the uneven sidewalk, Chantel pointing at everything from a squirrel to a piece of sidewalk chalk. Camilla watched Darren respond to each moment with patience. At the door of the daycare, Chantel turned and kissed her mother's cheek, then looked at Darren. I like when you walk with us. Darren crouched down. I like it too. Camilla stood to the side, arms crossed, but softer now. She didn't need perfect. She needed real. And slowly, this was starting to feel like it. The chill of late fall had begun to settle over the city. Coats came out of closets, windows stayed shut, and morning walks turned brisk. But the warmth inside Camilla's home defied the season. It was Saturday morning, and Chantel had appointed herself queen chef of the kingdom of pancakes. She wore a paper crown from daycare and held a plastic spatula like a royal scepter. Darren stood at the stove, flipping golden pancakes with comical focus. Camilla leaned against the kitchen doorway, arms folded, a small smile tugging at her lips. You two make quite the team. Chantel nodded with great authority. He listens to the queen. That means he gets syrup privileges. Camilla laughed. Is that so? Darren looked back, eyes soft. I don't mind taking orders, especially from royalty. After breakfast, the trio ventured out to a local thrift fair. It wasn't fancy, but it had charm. Handmade candles, knitted scarves, and music played by a man with a saxophone that bent like it had seen too many winters. Chantel dragged Darren from booth to booth, pointing at bracelets, picture books, and shiny rocks. Camilla watched them, trailing behind with her hands buried in her coat pockets. At one table, Chantel picked up a small wooden heart carved with the words, You are enough. She held it out to Camilla. This is for you. Camilla's breath caught. She turned it over. On the back was a tiny engraving for the mothers who stayed. Later that day, as the sun dipped low, Camilla and Darren sat on a bench outside the apartment, while Chantel played hopscotch on cracked pavement. She chose that heart for you, Darren said softly. Camilla nodded. She sees more than I give her credit for. She sees you. A pause. Camilla turned to him. Why didn't you tell me the truth back then? He didn't pretend not to know what she meant. I thought I had time, he said. Time to figure things out, to prepare a version of myself that wouldn't disappoint you. You disappeared instead. I did, he admitted. I was weak. Camilla looked away. I told myself I was protecting you from my chaos. But I see now that what I really did was abandon something precious before I had the courage to understand its worth. The words hung in the air. Camilla turned back to him slowly. And what do you understand now? That being her father doesn't start when I feel ready. It starts the moment I stop running. That night, Camilla stood in her bedroom, folding Chantel's laundry. She found one of the child's drawings tucked into the sleeve of her sweater. 3 stick figures stood beneath a big yellow sun. One was Camilla. One was Chantel. The third had a label written in purple crayon, Darren, not gone this time. Camilla sat on the edge of her bed, holding the paper like a fragile memory. Then she whispered aloud, more to herself than anyone. Maybe he really did come back. The next morning, Darren arrived at the door with something different. Not toys, not breakfast, not even flowers. Just a small wooden frame. Inside was a photo. Camilla blinked. Where did you get that? Yesterday, at the fair. We took it at that photo booth, remember? She had forgotten the camera flash entirely. In the picture, Darren was crouching. Chantel was sitting on his shoulders, mouth open mid-laugh. Camilla was looking sideways at both of them, caught mid-smile. It wasn't posed. It was real. "I had them frame it," he said quietly. "Thought it should go somewhere special." She took it from his hand and stared at it long enough to memorize every detail. "I don't know if we're there yet," she said. "I know," he replied, "but I wanted you to know how I see us." That evening, Nora came over with grocery bags and her usual sharp commentary. "I see Bunnyman is still clocking in," she said as she opened the fridge. Camilla nodded. "He's different now. Different good, or different I'm fooled again." Camilla chuckled. "Good, I think, but slow." "I'm not rushing anything. You don't have to," Nora said. "You're the gate. He can wait." The following week, Camilla invited Darren to a parent-child paint night at Chantel's daycare. He didn't just show up. He came early, apron on, hair tied back, ready to embarrass himself in front of toddlers. Chantel beamed as she painted a sun with a big smiley face, flanked by 3 uneven stick figures. Her teacher peeked over Camilla's shoulder and whispered, "She always talks about you. But now she says she has 2 people to tuck her in." Camilla's eyes blurred. At the end of the evening, Darren helped pack up the paint supplies and clean the little chairs. As the lights dimmed and other parents waved goodbye, he walked up to Camilla. "There's one more thing," he said. He pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a hand-drawn certificate, official dad in training. Provisional license. Camilla burst out laughing. "Where did you get this?" Chantel made it. She said, "I'm not a full dad yet, but I'm getting there." Camilla wiped a tear from her cheek. "She's not wrong. I'll earn it," he said. "I'll earn every part of this." And for the first time since the day he vanished, she believed him. Later, as Darren got ready to leave, Camilla followed him to the door. He turned to say goodbye, but she paused him. "I want to say something." He waited. "You're not there yet," she said, "but you're close." Darren's throat worked. "Thank you for letting me try." She nodded. "Thank you for not stopping." He left, and this time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full of possibility. Sometimes love isn't declared, it's proven piece by piece. Do you believe that earning someone's trust again can be more powerful than never losing it in the first place? Drop your thoughts in the comments and share this story with someone walking their own road to redemption. Camilla stood in the middle of her living room, stunned, staring down at the documents in her hand. Her name, printed beside the words "Primary Guardian." Chantel's name, tied to a trust fund that could carry her through private school, college, and beyond. And Darren's name, signing over everything with not just legal ink, but a new kind of truth. The weight of it made her chest rise and fall in slow, cautious rhythm. He hadn't mentioned any of this. Not once. And he didn't leave it like a man looking for credit. He just folded the manila envelope and slipped it beneath her front door, scrawling in clean print. No pressure, no performance, just a promise. Later that night, the apartment was quiet. Nora had gone home early. Chantel was asleep, one hand curled around a fuzzy blanket, her thumb still sticky from popsicle drips. Camilla sat at the kitchen table, documents spread before her like puzzle pieces she didn't know how to solve. She wasn't used to this kind of provision, not from a man, not from the father of her child. He'd already started doing the work, showing up, learning routines, making mistakes and correcting them without excuses. But this was more than gesture. It was structure. It was real. Still, part of her recoiled. She remembered being 19 and watching her own father walk out with nothing but a cigarette behind his ear and a suitcase of empty promises. Her mother never stopped waiting for a phone call that never came. Camilla had sworn she wouldn't be that woman. And yet here she was, staring at a man's signature, wondering if it was a beginning or just another exit wrapped in better handwriting. The next morning, she waited for Darren to show up. She didn't message, didn't hint, just sat with the document sealed in her purse and questions nesting in her throat. He arrived like he always did, hoodie, tired eyes, coffee in hand, and Chantel's favorite snack in a Ziploc bag. She let him in. "You all right?" he asked, noticing her folded arms, her tight smile. Camilla nodded to the couch. "We need to talk." Darren blinked. "Did something happen?" She held up the envelope. "I read it. All of it." He stepped forward, slowly. "Okay. You should have told me. I didn't want you to feel pressured," he said. "Or manipulated." Camilla stared at him. "You've been showing up here day after day, and you think this would be the thing that made me feel manipulated? I wanted it to be clean, quiet, no expectations." "No expectations?" she repeated, standing now. "Darren, you signed away portions of your company, revised your will, created an account in her name. That's not no expectations. That's life-altering." "I know," he said, "and I'm not asking you to applaud it." Camilla took a breath. "So, why do it now?" Darren sat on the edge of the couch. "Because it took me 3 years to understand what being a father actually meant. It's not showing up for birthdays or sending gifts. It's building a future for her, even if I don't get to be in every part of it." That silenced her. He met her eyes. "I'm not here for permission. I'm here because she deserves everything I have, even if you and I never become anything again." Camilla's walls cracked. "That's the first thing you've said that sounds like a man I could trust." Later that day, they walked to pick up Chantel from daycare. She burst through the doors, arms wide, barreling into Darren's legs. "Guess what?" she squealed. "I painted a picture, and it has all of us in it." Darren crouched down. "All of us?" She nodded. "It's in my cubby." They retrieved it together, 3 painted figures under a blue sky. A house. A dog they didn't have. But most striking were the smiles, red curves too wide to be realistic, but loud enough to speak joy. Camilla leaned over to see. Chantel pointed. "That's you. That's me. That's him. That's our home." Camilla's throat burned. They didn't live together, but somehow her child already believed they were a family. Back home, Darren offered to cook dinner. Camilla gave in reluctantly, watching as he fumbled with measuring cups and spilled oil twice before getting it right. Chantel danced around the kitchen, demanding music. Camilla cued a playlist, the room filled with soft R&B, then laughter, then the scent of rosemary, and something surprisingly edible. They sat down to eat. Midway through, Darren looked up. "I've been thinking." Camilla arched an eyebrow. "That always scares me." He chuckled. "What if—" "I rented a place nearby, something simple, so I could be closer. School drop-offs, pickups, emergencies. No pressure." Camilla set her fork down. "That's a big step. I want her to know I'm never too far." She stared at him, searching for cracks, for signs of the old Darren, the man who ghosted when things got heavy. But he wasn't there, just the man sitting across from her, trying. After dinner, Chantel fell asleep on Darren's lap, her head tucked into the crook of his arm. Camilla curled up at the other end of the couch, sipping tea. "You ever think about how fast it all changed?" he asked quietly. "All the time," she said. Darren ran a hand over his daughter's curls. "I used to think building a legacy meant boardrooms and Forbes covers. And now?" Camilla asked. He looked at her. "Now I think it looks like a sleepy 3-year-old snoring on your chest after spaghetti night." Camilla smiled softly, then whispered, "You're not just building her future, Darren. You're rewriting her past." Later, after tucking Chantel into bed and tidying up, Camilla walked Darren to the door. He paused in the hallway. "I meant what I said. No pressure. I'll stay close, whether or not you ever open the door wider." She studied him, then reached up and touched his shoulder. Not in invitation, but in acknowledgement. "You're doing good," she said. "Keep going." Then she closed the door softly behind him. And for the first time in 3 years, she didn't deadbolt it right away. It was nearing midnight when Camilla rolled over in bed, eyes wide open, her thoughts spinning louder than the city noise outside. The apartment was still, her room dim, lit only by the soft glow of a cracked streetlight bleeding through the blinds. She glanced toward her nightstand. The documents Darren gave her were still tucked in the drawer, but that wasn't what stirred her tonight. It was everything else. The way he watched Chantel like her breath mattered more than profit margins. The way he checked her oil when he saw the sticker in her windshield was 2 months overdue. The way he never tried to touch her, but always stood close enough for her to feel safe. She had known other men, before and after him, but none who waited without a deadline. That same night, Darren sat in a small short-term rental a block away from her building. It had bad Wi-Fi and worse pillows, but he didn't complain. It was quiet, grounding. He stared at the ceiling, hand behind his head, mind replaying the look on Camila's face when she opened that envelope. She hadn't cried, she hadn't smiled. But something shifted. He didn't need a declaration. He just needed her to know he was here. Still, for good, and as strange as it felt, sleeping a few streets away from the woman he once left, it felt like the right kind of purgatory. Earned, necessary. The next morning was cloudy. Camilla stood by the window, watching the clouds press low against the skyline. Rain threatened, but never came. She was supposed to meet Nora for coffee, but she cancelled. She needed the time. To think, to breathe, to do something she hadn't done in 3 years. She took out her journal, the one she'd started when she first got pregnant. Most of the early pages were notes to herself. Encouragements, vows, please. She flipped to a blank page and began writing without knowing what would come out. Today I almost said I miss him, but I didn't say it because I don't just miss who he was. I'm beginning to miss who he's becoming. She closed the journal softly and slid it under her pillow. That evening, Darren knocked at the door at exactly 6 p.m. Chantel ran to answer, barefoot and full of joy. Camila stepped into the hallway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Dinner's ready," she said. "If you're staying..." He looked surprised. "You cooked?" She nodded. "You've been feeding us all week." Seemed fair. He stepped inside. The apartment smelled like roasted chicken and garlic rice. Candles flickered gently on the table, subtle and unassuming. Chantel squealed and climbed onto her booster seat. Darren looked around and whispered, "It smells like home." Camilla gave a soft laugh. "It smells like seasoning. Let's not get ahead of ourselves." But her eyes said something else. Over dinner they joked, teased, talked about mundane things. Chantel showed off a star sticker she earned for cleaning up at school. Darren listened like it was a speech from royalty. Camilla watched them, chin resting on her hand. She didn't say it aloud, but the truth sat quietly in her chest. She didn't feel like a single mother tonight. She felt whole. After dinner, Chantel fell asleep watching an animated movie about a singing sloth. Darren helped Camilla clean up. She passed him a dish towel. "You're better at folding laundry than drying plates." He shrugged. "I'm a man of hidden talents." When the last fork was put away, they stood near the sink, closer than usual. Camilla leaned back against the counter, arms folded. "I want to ask you something. Anything. If I never let you back into my heart, if I said you could only be her dad, nothing more, would you stay?" Darren's answer came without hesitation. "Yes." She looked at him, eyes searching. "Why?" "Because her laughter is enough," he said. "And if all I ever get is to see her grow up happy, knowing I helped in some small way, then that's already more than I deserve." Camilla's throat tightened. "That's the right answer." He offered a sad smile. "But not the one you were hoping for." "No," she said. "It's exactly what I needed to hear." Later that night, Darren rose from the couch to leave. Camilla walked him to the door, like always. But this time, just before he turned the knob, she reached for his hand. "Wait." He turned. Her fingers were warm, soft, steady. "I'm still scared," she said. "So am I," he whispered. She stepped closer, her free hand brushing his jaw. And then, slowly, carefully, she kissed him. Not like the first time, years ago, in a car filled with static and possibility. This was a kiss of reclamation, of healing. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't needy. It was earned. When they pulled apart, her forehead rested lightly against his. "Don't make me regret that," she said. I won't, he whispered. He left with a quiet breath, and she closed the door with trembling fingers and didn't lock it. The next morning, Camilla placed a note in Chantel's lunchbox. I love you. Always. Right under it, she tucked a second post-it note, one with 3 drawn stick figures, a mother, a daughter, a man with ridiculous spiky hair labeled Bunny Man. Camilla smiled, then pulled out her phone. Message to Darren. Want to join us for dinner again tonight? I'm making that thing you liked. And maybe we'll talk about the future. She hit send and waited, but only for 3 seconds. Darren, I was hoping you'd say that. 6 months had passed since Camilla first opened the presidential suite and found her past standing in a tailored suit beside a city skyline. But the man beside her now, sitting at the breakfast table in wrinkled sweats, pouring apple juice with one hand and wiping Chantel's face with the other, felt nothing like the man who left her once. This man was present, not just in the room, but in their lives. Camilla stirred her coffee slowly, watching him cut a pancake into uneven triangles. Those pieces are all different sizes, she teased. Darren grinned. They taste the same, don't they, kiddo? Chantel nodded, cheeks stuffed. I like Daddy's pancakes better than the hotel's. Camilla blinked. It wasn't the first time Chantel called him Daddy, but it was the first time it slipped out so naturally, without a moment of uncertainty, like it had always belonged. After breakfast, the 3 of them went for a walk down the block. The neighborhood had changed since Camilla first moved in. Back then, it felt like survival. Now, it felt like a place where growth could happen. They passed the same cracked sidewalk that had once been Chantel's hopscotch kingdom. Darren held her hand on one side, Camilla on the other, and Camilla realized they looked like a family now, not because of pictures or words, but because of rhythm. They walked in sync. Back at the apartment, Camilla sat on the couch, flipping through a worn spiral notebook. Inside were her business notes, plans for expansion. Since launching her cleaning company 3 months ago, she'd booked 4 regular clients and even landed a small office building downtown. She was doing it, on her own terms. Darren walked in, tossing his keys on the table. You've got another call back from that real estate agency, he said. Same woman who asked for weekend service. Camilla smiled. She said she liked my attention to detail. He sat beside her, brushing a crumb from her shoulder. She clearly has taste. She chuckled, nudging him gently. I'm still not ready for anything fast, Darren. I know, he said. I'm here for the long road. Chantel peeked around the corner with her stuffed rabbit and whispered, Can I sleep in your bed, Mommy? Only if Bunny Man makes the bedtime story dramatic, Camilla said. Darren scooped her up. Tonight's tale, the day the pancakes turned into flying elephants. Chantel squealed with joy. Camilla watched them disappear into the bedroom, and her chest ached in a way she hadn't felt in a long time, not with grief, but with relief. This was what it meant to build again. Later that night, Camilla stepped out onto the small balcony while Darren folded laundry inside. She stared up at the sky, thick with clouds but honest in its stillness. She whispered, as if the stars could hear, Thank you for giving me the courage to wait until love was real. Behind her, Darren joined her quietly, standing close, but not too close. Mind if I ask you something? He said. Ask. If one day Chantel ever asks why I left, what should I tell her? Camilla turned to him slowly. The truth. Darren's eyes lowered. And what is that? That you were afraid, but you came back. He nodded. I'll never stop proving I'm here now. Camilla placed a hand over his. I know. The next morning, Camilla received a phone call from a client referral. The woman on the other end said she'd heard Camilla was professional, trustworthy, and thorough. Camilla hung up with a smile, heart full. She didn't realize Darren had been listening from the kitchen. You really built something, he said. So did you, she replied. I tore things down first, he admitted. She paused. Then maybe that's why it means more now. Later that week, Camilla received a surprise envelope in the mail. Inside was a hand-drawn certificate. Best Mummy in the Universe, signed in crayon with a big star and a smiling rabbit in the corner. Tucked behind it was another sheet. Best bunny man who never left again. Camilla clutched them both to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks. Chantal burst from her room. Did you like it? I made it with Daddy. Camilla knelt down, pulling her daughter close. I loved it more than anything. She looked up at Darren, standing in the doorway, arms crossed, expression tender. Thank you, she mouthed. He nodded once. Always. That night, Camilla lit a candle in the kitchen. No special occasion. Just to mark the quiet celebration of this new normal. She turned to Darren. You're not a guest anymore, she said. He blinked. You're part of this home now, and I need you to understand something. He stepped closer. I'll always have my own strength, she said, but I'm choosing to let you be part of my peace, not the reason I lose it. His breath hitched. You have no idea what that means to me. Then show me, she said. Every day. I will. And that night, for the first time since their story began again, he stayed. Not as the man she once lost, but as the man she never imagined he could become. The new Sunday routine had become sacred. Camilla cooked breakfast while soft gospel played from her Bluetooth speaker. Chantal sat at the kitchen table, still in her pajamas, coloring a picture of her dream house with a backyard trampoline and a pool shaped like a bunny. Darren was in the kitchen scrubbing the stove. Voluntarily, Camilla eyed him with suspicion. You don't have to clean everything you see. He glanced over his shoulder. I don't do it because I have to. I do it because I live here now. And I actually see it. She folded her arms, smile teasing her lips. You live here now, huh? He turned off the tap, stepped over, and kissed her forehead. Emotionally, I've been moved in since the day she handed me that trust fund certificate. Camilla snorted. The one with glitter glue? The one I laminated and keep in my wallet. Later that afternoon, they visited a small community event at a nearby park. There were food trucks, chalk murals, and a mini stage with local kids singing classic songs slightly off-key, but full of joy. Camilla sat on a picnic blanket, eating popcorn, while Chantal pulled Darren toward the face-painting booth. Camilla watched them. Her daughter, the man who once vanished, now crouching, grinning as a teenager painted a tiger stripe across his cheek. And then it hit her, not in a cinematic way, but in the quiet way that changes everything. This is what healing looks like. Not perfect, not flashy, but present. That night, back at home, Camilla sorted laundry in the hallway when she heard the unmistakable sound of laughter. Deep, unrestrained, Darren's laugh. She peeked into the living room. Chantal had wrapped a towel around her shoulders like a cape and was dramatically performing a magic show involving a flashlight and a stuffed owl. Darren clapped wildly. How did you do that? It's magic, she whispered. Only daddies get to see it. Camilla's hand pressed against the wall, heart tightening. She hadn't told Chantal to call him that. She hadn't prompted it. It just happened, because the truth had become undeniable, even to a child. Later, after Chantal fell asleep in her pajamas inside out, because she believed it made dreams more fun, Camilla and Darren sat together on the fire escape. The city pulsed around them. Horns, wind, neon blinking in the distance. Camilla took a deep breath. I think I'm ready. Darren turned his head. For what? For us. In a real way. He sat up, straighter. Are you sure? She nodded slowly. I needed to be sure you weren't showing up just to fix a mess. I needed to see that you're here even when nothing is broken. He reached for her hand. I want to be the reason peace stays, not the reason it has to be rebuilt. She leaned into his shoulder. Then, let's build slow. Together. He smiled. Whatever speed you want. That week, Darren moved the last of his belongings into a one-bedroom unit 2 floors down from Camilla's. It wasn't fancy, but it was his. And more importantly, it was close. Close enough for emergencies. Close enough for bedtime stories. Close enough to earn her trust brick by brick. Chantal adapted with ease. Do I get 2 homes now? She asked. Camilla grinned. You get one big one, with extra keys. Chantal beamed. I like that. Later that month, Camilla's cleaning company landed its largest client yet, an upscale law firm downtown. She came home that evening to find Darren and Chantal baking celebration muffins, complete with gummy bears and alphabet sprinkles. Camilla laughed. This is disgusting. Darren winked. But festive. She bit into one and nearly gagged. Okay. Maybe stick to pancakes. That night, with dishes done and candles burning low, Camilla found herself standing at the edge of her bedroom, staring at Darren as he tucked Chantal in. When he turned around, she stepped forward, wrapped her arms around his waist and whispered, I miss this. He kissed her temple. I never want you to miss me again. They lay down together that night, not like strangers reuniting, but like a family discovering rhythm. No need for declarations, just breath sinking to breath. A new kind of intimacy. Steady. Earned. A week later, Darren surprised Camilla with something simple, but deeply meaningful. A custom wall calendar, each date carefully marked. Daddy to daughter book day, Mommy's staff training, Sunday park picnic movie night. Camilla picks. Dad's therapy check, in. Camilla held the calendar in her hands for a long time. You remembered everything, she whispered. Of course, he said. This is my life now, and I'm proud of it. The final day of the month, they sat together on the same fire escape where so much had begun. Chantal was asleep inside. Camilla leaned against Darren's chest. She spoke softly. I used to believe you couldn't build trust once it was broken. And now? He asked. Now I believe. Trust isn't built in the apology. It's built in the silence after, when no one's watching and you're still doing the right thing. Darren kissed her hair. Then I'll keep doing that. For as long as you'll let me. Camilla smiled. Forever's fine. The wind carried salt from the sea, curling over rooftops and slipping through half-open windows. It wasn't a beach day, not exactly, but Camilla stood barefoot on the balcony of a small rented cottage overlooking the coast, sun-kissed and unscripted. She wasn't in a uniform. She wasn't rushing to fold towels or scrub a stranger's tub. She wore a linen sundress the color of cream, her hair loose, face calm. Behind her, Darren stepped out with 2 mugs of tea. He handed her one, let his hand linger on hers. Still feels strange, doesn't it? He said. She took a sip, nodding. Strange, but right. Chantal's laughter rang from inside the house. A moment later, she burst through the sliding doors, wrapped in a bright towel, her curls still damp from the beach shower. Daddy, can we make s'mores tonight? Darren knelt down. Only if you let me eat too. Deal. Camilla smiled and shook her head. She's negotiating like a CEO. They'd come to this coastal cottage as a quiet celebration. 1 year since that day in the suite. 1 year since the man she never thought she'd see again stood in her hotel room like a ghost in a suit. 1 year since he started showing up, for real. This wasn't a honeymoon. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was rest, recovery, reunion. Later that night, they lit a small fire pit and sat in the sand. Chantal made 3 s'mores, managed to eat half of one, and fell asleep in her mother's lap. Darren sat beside Camilla, fingers intertwined with hers. You remember how she used to call me Bunny Man? Camilla laughed. You had flour in your hair and wore an apron with carrots on it. What choice did she have? I still have the apron. You better. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that didn't feel empty. Then Darren said, I used to think love had to be earned with success, that you had to prove yourself with wealth, with power. And now? Camilla asked, gently brushing a grain of sand from Chantal's cheek. Now I know. Love is what you consistently give, not what you flash for applause. A few days later, they returned to the city. Camilla stepped into her new office, a modest suite on the 2nd floor of a local plaza. Her cleaning business had grown enough to hire 2 part-timers. She carried herself like someone who knew her value wasn't tied to struggle, but to the way she showed up, with excellence and grace. Darren waited outside with lunch in hand. "I thought I'd spoil the CEO today," he said, holding up a paper bag. Camilla smirked. "Oh, we're using titles now. Only the ones that fit." She walked over, kissed his cheek. "You've got yourself a good boss." He grinned. "I've got myself a better partner." Later that weekend, they attended a neighborhood block party. It wasn't glamorous: plastic chairs, mismatched tablecloths, kids with sticky hands. But it felt like community. Camilla and Darren danced barefoot in the middle of the street, swaying slowly to music pouring from old speakers. Neighbors clapped. Some smiled knowingly. "She's glowing," someone whispered. "She deserves it," another said. Chantel ran circles around them, cotton candy stuck in her curls. That night, in the quiet of their living room, Camilla sat curled into the couch, watching Darren read a new bedtime book to their daughter. The chapter ended, the lights dimmed, and Chantel whispered, "I'm happy." Camilla's eyes shimmered. So was she. Later, with the house still, Darren joined Camilla on the balcony once more. "You changed everything," he said, voice low. "No," she replied. "You chose to become what you were always capable of being." He kissed her forehead. "You made me believe I could." She rested her head against his chest. "I believed in the man who hadn't shown up yet. And you showed up." So I stayed. Somewhere far off, city lights blinked like slow applause. But inside their home, the applause was silent and strong. A daughter who smiled in her sleep, a mother who no longer carried the weight of heartbreak, and a father who finally stood tall in his place. It was a warm Sunday morning when Camilla walked into the lobby of the Park Ridge Grand, not as an employee, but as a guest of honor. The marble floors gleamed under her heels. The concierge nodded, this time not with passive recognition, but with reverence. She wore a tailored blazer and black slacks, her curls neatly coiled, a leather folder under one arm. Darren walked beside her in a navy button-up, hand at the small of her back, not leading, just present. Chantel trailed behind them, waving at a bellhop who used to hold her mom's elevator after long shifts. "Mommy used to work here," she said proudly. Camilla turned and smiled. "And now I own the cleaning contract." They stepped into the hotel's small conference room, where a dozen managers and corporate reps waited to hear her pitch. She was now one of 3 minority-owned vendors on the Grand's preferred list. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a flex. It was justice, served with grace and silent dignity. After the meeting, she stood alone in the hallway near the presidential suite. The same door, the same number, 3212. The last time she'd opened that door, her hands were shaking, and her life changed. She reached out now and grazed the plaque with her fingertips. Darren approached from behind. "You okay?" She turned, tears swimming but never falling. "This is where I found out who you used to be." He nodded. "And who I needed to become." She smiled faintly. "Thank you for not letting that be the end." He kissed the back of her hand. "Thank you for giving me space to rewrite it." That evening they held a backyard dinner in their new place just outside the city. Friends gathered. Nora brought her signature lemon bars. Chantel wore a tiara and walked around with a clipboard, assigning people to official snack duties. Camilla stood near the grill, watching Darren juggle hot dogs while her daughter critiqued his technique. "You're burning it, bunny man." He laughed. "I'm trying." Camilla shook her head. "We've created a tiny dictator. She gets it from her mother." She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse you." He leaned over, kissing her quickly. "Strong women raise strong daughters. I stand by it." As twilight folded over the yard, Camilla stepped aside with Nora. "You really let him in," Nora said. "I didn't let him. He earned it." Nora nodded slowly. "You look different now." Camilla glanced at her. "How?" "Like someone who knows she deserves to be loved well." Camilla smiled. "Took me a while to believe that." Believing it, Nora said, was the plot twist. Later, Camilla sat with Darren on the back steps. Chantel lay across both their laps, finally exhausted, sticky and sun-drenched. "I never imagined this life," Camilla whispered. "I tried to imagine it," Darren replied. But it never looked this real. She leaned against him, voice soft. Do you think we're happy? I think we're proof that broken things don't stay broken. They sat there until the stars blinked fully awake, until even their silence felt like music. 1 month later, Camilla received an invitation to speak at a community panel. Topic: Redefining Family. Rebuilding Trust. She stood at the podium, wearing the same shoes she once wore scrubbing hotel baseboards. But now, her presence filled the room, not because of her title, but because of her truth. She looked out over the crowd and began. There was a time I thought love only came with conditions, that once it shattered, you swept up the pieces alone and moved on. But I've learned something else. She paused, glancing at Darren in the front row, his hand on Chantel's shoulder. Sometimes love returns, not asking for forgiveness, but offering something better. Presence, patience, proof. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. But the loudest clap came from the little girl in the second row, holding a sign that read, "Go Mummy, my hero." Camilla stepped down from the stage with tears in her eyes. She didn't need flowers. She didn't need speeches. She had everything. And this time, no one could take it away. That night, back home, she kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, "You were the reason I kept going." Chantel blinked sleepily. Even when Daddy was gone? Camilla nodded. Even then. And now he's here. He is. Forever? Camilla looked across the room where Darren stood in the doorway, watching them both. She smiled. Forever. Her name was never just Maid. She was a mother, a builder, a healer, and now a woman loved out loud. If this story made you believe again, drop A in the comments, subscribe, and join our storytelling family. Because here on Mr. Charles Stories, we don't just tell stories, we remind you what's possible.